I always thought the biggest betrayals came from strangers, until the man trying to steal my father's life turned out to be family. Jordan never expected a routine phone call to trigger his suspicion, but when his step-uncle Leo casually mentioned that his father had started forgetting things, a small warning bell rang in his head. It wasn't the words, it was the tone, the overly concerned way Leo spoke, as if rehearsed. Jordan wasn't close to Leo, and their conversations were rare. That one, though unnecessary, seemed practically scripted. Jordan politely ended the call and immediately created a digital folder titled Sequence A. He added a note with the date, time, and conversation summary. No confrontation. He didn't even tell his father. Instead, Jordan began observing patterns, Leo suddenly making visits every few days, calling the house line instead of mobile, helping with shopping, and bringing documents with clipped envelopes for your dad to quickly sign. Jordan knew how elder financial abuse and power of attorney manipulations began, with subtle influence masked as help. Rather than accuse Leo or stir up drama, Jordan scheduled a quiet visit with his father that weekend. While pretending to help with groceries during the visit, he scanned the kitchen bulletin board where documents were usually pinned. There were new insurance forms and a printed draft of something resembling a will, signed in shaky penmanship. Jordan took a mental picture without touching anything. On the ride home, one thing became clear: this wasn't a family issue. It was a legal one. That night, without informing anyone, Jordan searched for reputable attorneys in elder law. He selected the top-rated local attorney and filled out a consultation form with basic details, careful to avoid providing names yet. The manipulation had started without announcement, but Jordan had noticed early. And that made all the difference. The entire strategy would depend on staying ahead, staying silent, and building private defenses first. Jordan didn't wait for a dramatic twist, no explosions, no accusations. Used control. 2 days after the folder began, Jordan walked into a law office with no intention of hiring anyone, just consultation. He had watched families erode through public courtroom drama and emotional overreactions. That would not be his path. He scheduled the meeting under initials only, using a temporary email address. The receptionist welcomed him without suspicion. Inside the lawyer's office, he laid everything out: his observations, the questionable forms, Leo's influence on his father, and the tone of recent conversations. He didn't pretend to be a victim, nor did he accuse Leo directly. He spoke only of behaviors, timelines, and documents. The lawyer nodded frequently and asked careful follow-up questions. After 45 minutes, the lawyer handed Jordan a legal roadmap, a plan detailing what steps one could take now without triggering family conflict or premature exposure. He gave Jordan 5 vital legal documents to keep on standby: a cease and desist letter draft, a power of attorney reversal form, a guardianship challenge draft, affidavit templates for evidence submission, and a checklist for forensic document review. Jordan left the office feeling more prepared, not invincible, but informed. He had no illusion of stopping Leo overnight, but with legal foresight in place, he now had tools to measure each step tactically. Outside, he didn't go home. Instead, he visited a storage print shop and scanned the files into an encrypted cloud folder. The lawyer never contacted him again. Jordan chose not to hire him unless needed. That single consultation, however, gave Jordan more than legal edge. It gave him clarity, distance, and time. While Leo was playing an emotional manipulation game, Jordan had now converted the playing field entirely. This was no longer personal, it was preemptive. Legally silent, but logically loud. Jordan understood the isolation trap. Families become echo chambers of guilt and pressure. It was tempting to either overreact or do nothing. It chose a third option: build parallel power. Instead of confiding in unstable relatives or social media drama, he enlisted 3 quiet allies. First, he called his cousin Nate, a neutral, mature figure in the family who had never taken sides. Nate wasn't close, but he had integrity. Jordan explained he was creating a fact record and needed someone independent to privately verify future steps or neutrality in case things went legal. Nate agreed to remain in the loop quietly. Second, Jordan arranged 6 appointments with a therapist. This wasn't the emotional venting, it was for bias detection. He told the therapist plainly, "I want to avoid viewing my father through revenge. I need to test myself." Lastly, Jordan hired a freelance notary registered locally who could witness signatures urgently if needed. These 3 people, a witness, a mental regulator, and a verifier, formed his unnoticed fortress. Jordan never mentioned Leo to them in dramatic terms. Everything was numbers, times, and document references. It wasn't about trust, it was about having unstained support systems. He also began making time for fitness and meals, because burnout wasn't just a health issue, it was a strategic vulnerability. Exhaustion leads to shortcuts. Shortcuts dissolve credibility. Parallel power meant that while Leo pulled strings visibly, Jordan built quiet authority, without alerting, complaining, or exhausting emotional currency. His daily review structure became 20 minutos of document checking, 30 minutos of emotional offload and journaling, and 1 check-in per week with Nate. Strategy wasn't about 5 bold actions, it was about 50 disciplined ones. Parallel power kept Jordan calm, and calm kept him dangerous. Leo thought silence was submission, it was structure. By the end of week 1, Jordan created something simple, a vinyl folder labeled Sequence Folder A. Inside, he organized physical copies of everything he began collecting: timestamp notes, screenshots, voice memo transcripts, medical calendars, and scanned letters. Each item was tagged by day and origin. But the real asset wasn't the paper, it was the mindset: never confront, always collect. It paired the folder with a digital backup mirrored in 3 cloud platforms under disguised labels. At no point did he monitor Leo's actions directly, he monitored deviation signs, sudden care meetings uninvited, changes to prescriptions, name appearances on account info. One backup showed Leo listed as temporary assistant for a medical fund Jordan had no knowledge of, and although nothing indicated fraud yet, the categorization was enough. Jordan didn't panic. He printed the detail, annotated it with no accusations, and filed it. He assumed that anything he didn't document didn't exist. Going forward, every new red flag had to pass the folder a review. If it couldn't be physically proven or printed, it was excluded. This discipline removed 80% of emotional distractions from the case. The folder grew, so did the digital mirror. It anonymized file names in numeric code, so even if hacked or leaked, nothing would appear sensitive. No message, no call, no phone was allowed to pass through daily life undocumented. Quiet archiving became his primary weapon. By the end of the month, folder A wasn't just a binder, it was a chronological weapon, recognized by his legal advisor as admissible, factual, and organized. The manipulator suspected nothing. Jordan knew panic was failure. Composure? Efficient silence? That was survival. When Leo called again pretending to check in, Jordan listened for 20 minutes while Leo babbled vague stories about Jordan's dad acting confused. At the end of the call, Jordan asked only one question: could you email me exactly what my father said, and what concerns you? Leo hesitated and replied, it's hard to explain in writing. Jordan pressed, please do email it. I need specific examples to understand fully. The call ended. That night, no email came. As expected. The next day, Jordan initiated a routine: every verbal conversation from anyone associated with his father would be recorded, if legally allowed in their jurisdiction, and transcribed into a PDF file, stored inside folder A as echo files. Whenever a significant statement was made in person or over the phone, he used voice transcription software to digitally log the dialogue. What didn't get said in writing rarely counted in court. And manipulation never wanted records. Jordan answered all calls in a slow, non-provocative tone. He matched Leo's rhythm, but with the sole purpose of legally baiting written intuition. Waiting 2 weeks, voice memos became evidence logs. When call had Leo mistakenly admitting, it's easier to just get him to sign first and explain it after, you know? Jordan stored that audio with legal timestamps and shared it with his silent notary contact. Again, no confrontation. Only collection. Leo never asked why Jordan wasn't reacting, but he started calling less frequently. Because manipulation hates a flat tone, it can't survive without emotional heat. Jordan learned, noise triggers errors. Quiet builds records. Every phone call from then on became less about conversation and more about preservation. Emotional bat. Ignored. Sleeps. Captured. Strategy? Working. Jordan knew the biggest trap would be reacting. If he lost emotional control, even once, it'd be labeled unstable, aggressive, or too close to the issue to be taken seriously. So, he didn't react at all. Over the next several weeks, Jordan strictly followed a calm strategy: no arguments, no sudden family messages, no replying to vague taunts or concerns dropped by Leo or others. Anytime he felt emotionally triggered, he wrote it down privately, read it the next day, and chose logic over rage. This process transformed him into someone even manipulators couldn't provoke. His lawyer had once told him, in any family dispute, the calmest person wins credibility, not the loudest. Jordan lived by this. In online family groups, when Leo dropped passive-aggressive hints about some people interfering, Jordan responded only with facts. That's last appointment was attended by the registered nurse at 3:45 de la tarde, per the logbook. No emotional reaction. No digs. Used documented truth. That unshakable tone did something interesting, it confused Leo. A had expected debates, accusations, emotional collapse. Instead, Jordan was silent, but visibly organized. Instead, Jordan still prepared daily. His documents were tighter than ever. His sequence folder had daily logs now, not just when events happened, but also when they didn't. No new contact from Leo today. That's mood stable, unchanged. It was no longer reacting, he was anticipating. Slowly, Leo's interference toned down. But Jordan stayed on high alert. Camnis wasn't passivity, it was a tactic. Leo had no idea Jordan had built an entire system behind that calm smile, quietly arming himself for whatever came next. Control wasn't a word Jordan repeated, it was a behavior he embodied. His credibility grew not just legally, but psychologically. The manipulator was now guessing. Jordan wasn't. The temptation to confront Leo was at its peak when Jordan discovered a bank interaction showing Leo's name added to a shared assistance access role. It was subtle, but unauthorized. A lesser prepared person would be picked up the phone, called Leo, and demanded answers. But Jordan followed the single rule he had built his entire strategy on, no confrontation without proof, and never directly. Instead of reacting, he took a screenshot of the bank detail, then visited the bank in person. There, he politely asked to clarify who added Leo and under what authority. The representative hesitated. Apparently, it had been done in person, with a poorly signed letter Jordan hadn't seen. He asked for a copy and took it back to his lawyer. Again, he said nothing to Leo. He moved based strictly on timelines and data. That then signed document was scanned into folder A, labeled Fabricated Access Request Número 1. Jordan privately asked his father when they last visited the bank together, his father had no memory of it. Jordan didn't argue. He simply made a new affidavit, signed by his father voluntarily, acknowledging no third-party approvals were intended. It stayed private for now. From that day forward, Jordan implemented another rule, every suspicious change triggered immediate verification, but not reaction. He kept his reputation clean. If Leo ever tried to present Jordan as distrustful or aggressive, there would be no proof, because Jordan said nothing. This neutrality gave Jordan the advantage. The focus stayed on Leo's behavior, not Jordan's response. Scorekeeping became unnecessary, facts did all the talking. With no reaction, Leo lost an expected battle before it even began. The full confrontation would come later, but not under Leo's timing. Jordan was building something stronger than punishment. It was building undeniable credibility. Leo called for a family meeting. Location, Grandma's living room. Time, 4 de la tarde. Jordan accepted the invite without hesitation, but he prepared like it was a courtroom. He arrived early, laid out pre-printed copies of timelines from folder A, and carried a typed and signed statement advised by his lawyer, just in case things escalated. He didn't dress aggressively. No legal threats. Used documentation. The meeting opened with the usual small talk, but Leo quickly transitioned, claiming Jordan had been too involved in their father's care, implying manipulation from his side. Jordan listened silently, letting Leo finish. When it was his turn, Jordan didn't argue, he slid his timeline forward and calmly said, "This document outlines my non-involvement with anything legal, paired with direct quotes and timestamps from prior interactions. Several pages, no emotion. Used neutral facts." He turned to the rest of the family and said, "Rather than guess each other's intentions, we could potentially settle this with professional oversight, medical, legal, and notarized. Let's make this clean." The room went quiet. Leo didn't expect a soft punch laced with logic. Other relatives scanned the document Jordan had handed them, it showed nothing dramatic, but total consistency. In that moment, Jordan shifted the floor. Nobody could label him rash, arrogant, or manipulative. Even those neutral in the room realized, Leo might be pushing too hard. For the rest of the meeting, Jordan said less. He let the material speak. The calm transparency made it harder for Leo to gain allies. And Jordan left the meeting with one more thing, social capital. He didn't win anyone aggressively, but he didn't lose credibility either. That balance was the real strategic point. Jordan wasn't there to destroy Leo. It was there to nullify him with professionalism. Behind the scenes, things escalated. Jordan quietly downloaded a record search form and submitted a request for his father's official will and medical directive stored at the county registrar's office. After roughly 10 working days, he received the files. Inside that envelope, he spotted a problem. A 2021 will revision, supposedly signed by his father, now listed Leo as healthcare proxy and co-beneficiary in the event of medical complications. Jordan compared this version with the 2018 version he remembered, where Leo's name had never appeared once. The 2021 signature looked shaky, inconsistent. Jordan took a high-resolution scan and mirrored it against 3 of his father's signed bank statements from the same year. The handwriting alignment was off, the loop height and pressure flow were inconsistent. Jordan didn't panic. He printed them all and quietly arranged a preliminary meeting with a handwriting expert, using online freelancing services for confidentiality. The feedback from the expert gave him a professional red flag, likely non-match, further testing recommended. Jordan paid extra for a notarized examiner's letter, which he stored under folder as estate tampering concerns. He still didn't accuse Leo. He visited his father and asked gently, "Do you remember ever switching beneficiaries or giving Leo medical power?" His father blinked, confused. "No, has someone done that?" Jordan replied, "Maybe. But I'm just checking everything to be sure we honor what you truly want." Even then, no reveal. No attacks. Information was safety, and assumption was danger. Jordan vowed from that day, nothing from 2021 would ever be accepted without multi-level verification. Leo's game moved into inheritance territory. But Jordan didn't play emotionally. He documented. One signature difference was enough to shift the legal dynamic, but only if handled slowly. And legally. Jordan's grip tightened. Not inwardly. On paper. Jordan knew that even with documents, evidence, and expert opinions, assumption was the enemy of truth. Everything he'd done so far was based on suspicion and logic, but even logic required testing. What if he was wrong? Or half right? What if his father had, at some point, made a real decision, under duress or otherwise, to make Leo the healthcare executor? That possibility couldn't be ignored. So, he performed one of the boldest but most low-key acts in the entire plan. He hired a private neuropsychologist to perform a neutral mental status evaluation on his father. It wasn't difficult. He arranged a routine wellness session under the guise of elder well-being care, using a private mobile practitioner who specialized in working with seniors during estate transitions. The session was voluntary, brief, and informal to his father, but incredibly detailed from a capacity and cognition standpoint. The report was clear. His father showed no signs of dementia, suffered from minor forgetfulness common in age, but was entirely capable of making decisions and understanding documents. That single report shut down any argument Leo might try later about mental incompetency. With that secured, Jordan initiated another subtle move. He asked simple, emotionally neutral questions to his dad. Have you thought about whether anything should change in your will as you get older, and do you still want the people listed before, or anyone different now? Over coffee, with no pressure, his father admitted, I don't remember ever changing anything. That was all Jordan needed. He recorded the conversation legally and stored it as a declaration of current intent. The truth was now in place, not from judgment, but validation. Jordan had guessed correctly about Leo, but he had also proven himself wrong where it mattered most. He allowed room for his father's voice. That neutrality became his strongest weapon going forward. Leo finally made his move. He filed for emergency limited guardianship, citing Jordan's father as confused, possibly declining, and requested legal authority for medical and financial decision-making. Jordan received notice through a soft copy served by mail, couched in civil language, but the threat was real. Most people panic when they get court papers. Jordan didn't. He responded exactly as advised. He forwarded the petition to his attorney, who instantly cross-filed a guardian objection citing sufficient mental capacity and prior documentation of Leo's misconduct. More importantly, the neuropsychologist's report from Chapter 10 became the centerpiece evidence. The court, instead of approving Leo's request, triggered a mandatory investigation. With no verified signs of incapacity and record-verified history from Jordan, the judge delayed the hearing for 90 days pending further review. During that delay, Leo tried to build a social case. Family gossip started. Cousins began calling Jordan asking questions like why is all this suddenly legal? Again, Jordan didn't respond emotionally. He forwarded every inquiry to his neutral cousin Nate, who simply replied to people that things were being handled through formal process and it was best not to interfere. Internally, Jordan added every development to folder A, labeled entries like manipulation attempt, legal filing numero uno and delay order, judicial response. The extended timeline was expected, it had even been projected in Jordan's original calendar. He scheduled reminders every 14 days for legal check-ins and assessments. Delays didn't stop him, they gave him room to expand his case, build deeper narrative alignment, and polish weak areas. Because while Leo had filed prematurely an assumption, Jordan had prepared methodically for inevitability. There is a difference. One was provoked. The other was predicted. Guardianship wasn't just blocked. It was neutralized. And the court now had questions for Leo that he wasn't PR. During a quiet afternoon, Jordan visited his father with no agenda, just lunch. No legal questions, no stress, just distance from the case. Over soup and bread, his father said, I heard Leo tried to take over my stuff in court. Jordan paused, surprised. Who told you? His dad said, he did. It dropped by yesterday. While Jordan's heart accelerated slightly, he didn't show it. And what did he say? He asked casually. His father replied, he said you were overmanaging things. That you can't be trusted financially. This was bold, even for Leo. But once again, instead of reacting, Jordan said, did you ever give Leo permission to act for you? His father looked directly at him. Absolutely not. Jordan asked one more clarifying question, and did you ever sign anything changing your original will? His father shook his head. I haven't touched anything since that lawyer you helped me with years ago. Jordan, having learned that truth must go into record, signaled toward his phone, mind if I record this? Used in case someone challenges it. His father agreed. Jordan pressed record. What followed was a 3-minute, direct, voluntary declaration from his father affirming that no new legal authority had ever been granted to Leo, he remained of sound mind, and he trusted Jordan. That file became the lead exhibit in folder A. It would later act as critical testimonial proof if ever questioned. This moment marked a turning point, not because it was emotional, but because it locked the narrative in the voice that mattered most, the father. Not Jordan. Not Leo. Not suspicion. Just truth, voluntarily presented, calmly recorded. That's what Leo never accounted for, the target standing up, clearly, without help. Jordan didn't win by fighting for his father. He won by creating space where his father could speak for himself. The days following the recorded declaration, Jordan moved fast. He isolated the suspected documents, particularly the forged 2021 will update, and submitted them to the lawyer for formal forensic review. A certified handwriting analyst compared the alleged fake signature with verified records. The result? 90% probability of forgery. With Jordan's father openly contradicting the 2021 document's contents and the formal evaluation in hand, Jordan's attorney drafted a potential fraud complaint, but advised restraint. We don't file yet, the lawyer instructed. Let's wait and see if Leo steps deeper. If we remain professional, A.J. bury himself. Jordan agreed. Filing prematurely risked backlash and showing aggression, something the court often misunderstood in family settings. Instead, they prepared a legal trap. They drafted a response motion invoking the questionable document but didn't press charges. It was included in the court record and mentioned subtly under discrepant materials received without basis. Meanwhile, Leo unknowingly submitted the forged document again during discovery. Bingo! His error became public record through Leo's own hand. Now, Jordan's materials would enter as response, not attack. That strategic positioning meant offense camouflaged as defense. Leo thought he was playing offense, but legally, it crossed into exposure. Every signature, once analyzed and compared, became ammo for potential future escalation, but Jordan never filed criminal charges. It didn't need to. His goal wasn't prison. It was invalidation. The power Leo craved no longer held legal weight. And any future documents from Leo would be automatically questioned. A single false move poisoned the entire credibility pool he was fishing from. Jordan's quiet waiting paid off. He didn't accuse the forgery, he disqualified it legally. That distinction made all the difference. Forgers look for reaction. Jordan gave them case files instead. The court reopened the case, now with both parties fully represented. Jordan's response submission was crisp, courteous, and fully documented. Leo's had holes. When the judge examined the documents from both sides, the balance became clear. Verified evaluations, neutral declarations from the father, and expert analysis outweighed vague claims about confusion and isolation. The court motion to grant Leo any form of guardianship was officially denied. The judge added, future attempts must come with verified third-party consent. That line alone was a dagger. Leo's position was exposed, not criminally, but reputationally. Jordan remained silent during and after the proceedings. Those who had once doubted him now understood the bigger picture. Leo avoided charges, for now, but the family dynamic shifted. Gold stopped coming. Invitations watered down. His influence weakened. He had played a long game of deception, but lost to a longer game of documented truth. Jordan didn't celebrate. He removed Leo's name from all access points legally and set up a third-party medical oversight agency to ensure no private manipulations could happen again. His father was now under protected access protocols, biometric password locks, banking alerts monitored via neutral law clerks, and monthly health reviews. The fallout? Total decentralization of Leo's power, not by punishment, but by irrelevance. Jordan didn't win in the traditional sense. There was no grand victory, no courtroom clap. But Leo lost everything subtle manipulators rely on: discretion, leverage, influence, and optional invisibility. Light had been cast. That was the most brutal exposure. And Jordan didn't need to say a single hateful word to get there. Jordan opened folder A one last time, nearly 11 months after it began with one suspicious phone call. The cover sheet had the original date, the turn sequence plan and a checklist that now was fully marked: consultation heavy checkmark, documentation heavy checkmark, neutral evaluation heavy checkmark, evidence heavy checkmark, psychological balance heavy checkmark, family meeting heavy checkmark, submission handling heavy checkmark, legal dismantling heavy checkmark. Each item wasn't magical, it was procedural. Jordan hadn't acted off intuition alone, he relied on strategy, delay tolerance, logic, and non-escalation psychology. Familias often implode not because of lies, but reaction to lies. That's what Jordan avoided. Losing credibility? Prevented. Judicial delay? Predicted. Mental bias? Countered with therapists and professionals. At no point did Jordan let the manipulator define the rules. He simply built a machine around the problem. The result wasn't destruction, it was truth, unshakable even in silence. More powerful than revenge was clarity. Leo left the picture, perhaps wounded, perhaps plotting, but never invisible again. His threat dissolved. Diminished by evidence and daylight. Jordan didn't win through dominance. He won through preparedness. Because sometimes, the smartest move isn't speaking louder. It's documenting deeper. Every page of folder A said one thing: this is how you outsmart manipulation without becoming it. His father, now fully in control, thanked him the following week with 5 words: you did everything the right way. That meant more than any courtroom ruling could. Jordan didn't destroy Leo. He neutralized him, legally, logically, and permanently. Sometimes, the real victory is not letting yourself lose, even if the other person wins with a lie. If you've ever felt something like this, please let me know in the comments. I read every comment. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. Don't forget to share it with someone close to you, they might need to hear it too. And if you want to hear more such real stories, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next story.